Hi, this is Streaky Mastering TV with me, Streaky G. I just thought I'd talk limiters today and how I tend to use them when I'm mastering people's records. If I use them, sometimes I may just use one just for a sort of half dB lift, just to shave the peaks off to stop them going over. Sometimes I don't like using limiters at all, because I think that they can change the sound and smear the sound a little bit too much, and I quite like things that are just going over and sort of just bouncing about, because it just keeps them a bit more peaky and keeps everything a little bit more lively and a little bit more open. This obviously depends on the track, and that's up to your ears to decide whether you want to use a limiter or not. The reason why you used to have to use limiters was, in the old days you had big old U-matic tapes, and they went off to the CD factory, and the CD factory used to reject the tapes if you had any overs. So if it went into the red at all, then it would get rejected straight away from the factory. It'd come back to the mastering studio, you'd have to run it all again, and the process of building a CD master wasn't as quick as it is now with computers. It was a very time consuming process, so you didn't want that to happen at all. So the main reason that you had a limiter was just to keep that level over, so that just in case it popped over by 0.1 of a dB, you didn't have any overlights going off, and the error reports didn't sort of get sent back from the factory. But since that time, obviously limiters are more important, and not just because people are trying to get things as loud as possible. They've always tried to get things as loud as possible, but everyone's trying to squeeze as much out of it without losing so much dynamics. The way I found to do this, if that's what you're trying to do, is use maybe 2 or 3 limiters, different ones for different types of music, but use them all, rather than doing, say, a massive shift of, say, 4 dB or 3 dB across one limiter, which, you know, is quite a lot for one piece of software to handle. You're better off doing them in smaller increments of, say, a dB or 1.5 dBs, or sometimes I just use the gain on some plugins to lift the level a bit, and then put a limiter afterwards, which gives quite a nice sound as well, because obviously coming out of all the analog equipment, you're not going to go as loud into your A to D, so you're not doing some, you know, harsh digital clipping in there. It's nice to come out of that and then get into the system, and then maybe just pump up a little gain, put a little limiter across the top, or just put sort of 3 limiters on there, doing little, you know, move them around on the screen so you can have them in different orders to check them out. But it's all really, again, listening to what you're doing and seeing if they're sucking or pushing or actually changing the sound, because in effect what they're doing is kind of compressing a little bit. They're kind of, you know, you're pushing it against them. And I would always say, if you're mastering with analog equipment first, it's good to have them running so that you're listening to them as you're EQing, because then you can EQ into them and you can push things into them, you know, push your sound into it, but at least you can hear what's happening, rather than coming out of your equipment, putting it onto your system and then doing the limiting afterwards. It's a bit, you know, it doesn't really work for me. I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments, subscribe, and see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Bye.